And I know that my disguise will melt off in a sunrise. And I know that it's designed for the sun to make me shine. But it feels like this time that my heart's been mummified, and I won't make it to the night. They tell me I'm too young to be thinking like this. Got my life ahead of me, but feel like it's in abyss. Like my life left for a mistress. Call me back, I must have missed it. I should have been a skater, maybe a heartbreaker, some kind of creator, simple money maker. I'm just a simple money maker.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Marketing Monday on July 11th, a Tuesday, about the recent acquisition of Activision Blizzard for a whopping $69 billion, the largest acquisition in tech history. Microsoft looms large and has purchased one of the largest studios in gaming to feed their growing console and cloud business. And today, as of a few hours ago, it was officially approved by the judge overseeing the case against the FTC, or they stopped the FTC from blocking it, which means it's likely to go through. And I want to talk through what that decision means, because it happened, okay? The trial is over. The judge has decided to deny the FTC's preliminary injunction request, and it's very, very likely at this point that Microsoft's deal will go through. What does that mean for us, the average, beleaguered, everyday gamer? What does it mean? Well, I saw a great opinion. The legal system worked by Lulu Chang. A fair and neutral court has reached the correct conclusion about Activision Blizzard's merger based on facts and the law. The judge's ruling rejects the FTC's ideologically driven attempt to prevent a deal that benefits gamers and allows more competition instead of protecting the market leader. Based. Who is Lulu Chang, you ask? A hero? Sure. But maybe, more accurately, the CCO and Executive Vice President of Corporate Affairs at Activision Blizzard. But she is the best judge of whether this was true and fair. And I saw in my YouTube feed this morning a lot of videos with thumbnails like this. And because I'm easily influenced by memes, I did not want to be the crying Sony Wojak on the right. I want to be the cool stay mad Xbox guy, dude. I want to be based in Chad pilled. I want to be on the right side of history, dude. I don't want to be like these fucking Sony fanboys. Despite the fact that I'm a PC gamer who doesn't play either. I don't want to be even associated with the stink of these Sony shills. I want to be this cool guy with the crown. And so when I saw posts like this from Jesse Cox, a 15-year games journalist, who said, explain to me like I'm 5 how the Microsoft acquisition is a deal that benefits gamers and allows more competition. How does fewer and fewer companies owning more and more do this? What is the benefit to the gamer? I realized this guy is a Sony shill. Even though he said if this was Sony, I would say the same. I've been in games podcasts for 13 years. Dig up clips. How hard is it to say that all big corporations and all billionaires are doing shit to screw you over? Nice try, Sony shill. Pony? Dude. Also, when I saw this guy Grums, who is the former team lead on the development of World of Warcraft, he literally worked at Blizzard. He said Game Pass is great for Microsoft and horrible for individual games. You know how games have to make money if they're so cheap on Game Pass? In-game purchases and predatory monetization. The goal is to get you in cheap, then monetize you like a casino. Y'all are cheering this. This is about conglomeration of content to a single dominant source. It's a wealth profit transfer. Yeah, brother. Sony shill, dude. Sony fucking shill. That's why I was so proud when I saw that somebody from the Hero Chad Xbox team had sent him this death threat. You better shut your damn mouth up and stop salting the Microsoft deal, you FTC bought clown, or I swear to God I'll kill you, skin the hell out of you, R-word you, and then get rid of you George Floyd style. Microsoft will win this. Really, really cool stuff. I am so glad that the passionate of these gamers over a $1 trillion corporation getting a merger deal. That's passionate. And so I started to figure, wait, how high does this Sony shilling go, dude? I don't want to be part of this fucking terrible system. And the FTC is the US government, basically. Is Joe Biden a Sony shill? How far up does this go? When did the US government fall under the control of the fourth biggest Japanese company? I don't know. So my original presentation today might have mentioned things like the fact that the judge's son was a Microsoft employee just hired right before the trial. And I might have thought, that's a little weird. Maybe she should have recused herself, as is normal judicial ethics. I might have mentioned that all of this angrily deriding anyone who is against the merger of one giant corporation with another is a bit of bootlicking. I might have said that. But I don't want to be Joe Biden. I don't want to be a Sony shill here. So instead, I decided to actually look, and I'm not kidding, actually look into why so many people on the internet who are regular everyday gamers feel so strongly about this. What are the reasons they feel like this is so important that this big company needs to get ever bigger? And I found 3 of them, and I think I kind of nailed it. So here it is. Number 1, we all hate Bobby Kotick. We can all agree Bobby Kotick, kind of an asshole. And we know that if Microsoft buys Blizzard, he's out. Okay? That's a pretty good reason. Fuck Bobby. Let's get him out. Okay, I'm seeing some of that. That's a real reason. I'll put that in. Reason number 2 that I saw from reading all this stuff. Sony does it too. Sony are bullies. They control the world. They control Joe Biden. They control the UK government. They control all of these journalists who are against it. They control anybody deriding this. Sony does it too. All right? Okay, that's another fair reason. Sony does it too. Bobby Kotick's an asshole. And the third and most important reason that I think really drove a lot of this passion and this anger and this resentment and this just fucking furious need for this $70 billion merger to go through. Money that nobody in this cheering section will ever see. And that is, they really like Xbox Game Pass and want more stuff on it. They spend a little bit of money a month on Xbox Game Pass and they want more stuff on it. Okay? And I can see that. From a short-term consumer perspective, I can totally see that. You want more things on the service you pay for. And anything that stands in the way of that, you're pissed about. You're angry. Fuck these guys. They're trying to stop my Game Pass from getting more games. Okay. Let's go through these. All right. I just want to go through some of these reasons. Because I think we can agree these are actually the reasons. If you are somebody who's kind of happy that this deal went through, let's be honest, these are probably the reasons. I think this is why, in its core, that you thought this. Number 1, Bobby Kotick. Okay? Now, Bobby Kotick is expected to leave once this deal closes, and we're all pretty happy about that. But here's the deal. Before this deal was announced, Activision stock had dropped 40%. They had lost $30 billion of market cap. Right around here, there was already calls to kick him out. He had mismanaged the company. There was sexual harassment lawsuits left and right. There was delays on Overwatch 2 and Diablo. People were already pissed. And instead of this guy getting the boot out of the company as the shareholders revolted, instead of everybody realizing he fucked up, instead, he stands to make a $400 million payday because he pawned the whole company off to Microsoft. So instead of this guy getting some tiny semblance of justice for fucking over a lot of franchises we love and a great company, instead he becomes one of the richest people in the world and walks off into the sunset. That would frustrate me. But okay. So go back to this. So, just that one. That's a small one, though. That's a small one. The second one is that Sony does this too. And again, from me, you will find no disagreement. I am not part of the console wars. I'm a PC gamer. Actually, Sony's a little bit worse for me because they don't put all their games on PC. Sony has tried every trick in the book as well. For the long time they've been in business, they try to get exclusives. They try to lock down things away from their competition. They try to work with stores back in the day to push Sega consoles in the back and PlayStation in the front. They do everything they can as well. But there's a difference. You see, remember in this post I showed earlier where Jesse Cox was complaining, y'all are acting super defensive over $1 billion corporation. That was funny to me when I saw that. That was kind of funny because Microsoft is not a $1 billion corporation. Sony is not a $1 billion corporation. Sony's a $100 billion corporation. Microsoft is a multi-trillion dollar corporation. And I want to kind of give you a scale idea of that because I think it's very tough to understand. So I use the literal scale. So this is Microsoft on the left, and it is bigger. We know that, a little bit bigger than Sony on the right. It's bigger. But I figured, okay, what could adding Activision Blizzard really do to change that? Not that big a deal. So let's make it even. Let's give Sony some things to balance it out because Microsoft's bigger. They're going to get Activision Blizzard. So I gave Sony Netflix. Imagine if tomorrow Sony merged with Netflix to become a bigger company to fight Microsoft. Well, it turns out they would still be a little bit smaller than Microsoft. Sony plus Netflix, still smaller. Whatever. Then I gave them Mercedes-Benz. So tomorrow, Sony, Netflix, and Mercedes-Benz team up to fight Microsoft. They're not quite there, but now we're getting to a real area. Then I decided we don't have a lot of time for this in Marketing Monday. So I gave them Boeing, Nike, Disney, Verizon, Walmart, McDonald's, Starbucks, Coca-Cola, and Raytheon, and ExxonMobil. And they were still smaller than Microsoft by one full Sony. So if tomorrow a new company was created called Boeing, Nike, Disney, Verizon, Raytheon, Walmart, McDonald's, Starbucks, Coca-Cola, ExxonMobil, Mercedes, Sony, Netflix, they would still be one full Sony smaller than Microsoft. This is 100% true. The difference in market cap between a $2.5 trillion company and a $110 billion company is fucking massive. And that's how I finally got to use my whiteboard. Let me show you. This, let's see, let's move this over here and move this. This right here is the size of Activision Blizzard. You'll notice it's basically as big as Sony. $110 billion company. This, he actually cuts off. This is Microsoft. Okay? Each one of these is a Sony. So when you talk about Sony doing the same thing, you must understand these companies are not playing in the same league. They're not able to do the same things. The things Microsoft are doing, like buying Activision Blizzard for $70 billion, are things that are literally impossible for Sony. And it is creating a level of concentration that was previously not possible. And because Microsoft has a rent-seeking own of basically the operating system and office productivity software markets, they can use all of the money they make from those industries to subsidize a losing business in gaming in a way that Sony absolutely cannot. And no other company outside of like Amazon or Apple could even be close to it. Also, during the trial, this exact conversation was found out in the leaked emails or like the revealed emails, where Microsoft executive Matt Booty, which by the way, funny name, said that we, Microsoft, are in a very unique position to be able to go and spend Sony out of business. That to me is a very damning line from a leaked internal email. That's why, and again, this email is all about cloud and why they want to do day and date releases of AAA games on Xbox Game Pass, because no one has the money to keep up with releasing a AAA game at a loss on a cloud service for $5 a month the day it's released. Sony cannot afford that. So that brings me to the third part, which is Xbox Game Pass. And we're talking about, again, this already kind of covers it, but I want to get into the Xbox Game Pass. Xbox Game Pass is an amazing deal for gamers right now. And the reason it's like that is because Microsoft is making so much money elsewhere, they can lose money on Game Pass now to make it feel so great to customers temporarily. That is the whole goal. And I kind of wanted to use a simple example. So I tried to think of something like a lemonade stand. If two competing lemonade stands are there, initially what they compete on is the quality of the lemonade. Maybe the marketing of the sign, you know, the design of the console, what games are on it, maybe price, but for profitability, they still have to sell at a profit. But if one of the kids has a rich father that buys the local lemon grower and has a price advantage on when they sell the lemons, or creates a lemon pass that can sell free lemonade all month for a nickel, then the other company simply doesn't have the economic resources to compete in the same way. It doesn't matter if they make better games. They have to buy from the same grower. And even if this little kid promises, they promise that, you know, even though my dad bought the lemon grower, we're going to sell you lemons. Don't worry about it. It creates a lot of headaches for their competitor, because their competitor might, like, for example, want to talk to the lemon grower and tell them their future plans to forecast upcoming demand. Like, hey, we're going to actually reveal a new flavor in 2 weeks, so we need a better supply of lemons. Well, now that knowledge goes back to this guy. For example, what exactly will happen if the biggest game in the world, Call of Duty, is owned by a competitor? Now you can't tell them, hey, we're launching the PS6 in, 6 months and it's going to have these specs. Because now that information goes directly to their competitor, and Sony makes a big chunk of its survival revenue from PlayStation on selling Call of Duty. So even if Xbox agrees for the 10-year deal to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation, it creates all sorts of headaches and risks and competitive dangers. Because now Sony can't tell them about upcoming consoles to get things built that are feature specific. Like, just for example, imagine this with something like the motion controls with the Wii. They can't say that ahead of time to their competitor to get stuff built for it. So it puts them in a huge risky position. Secondly, explained here, they cannot afford to offer the same deals that Microsoft can. So even if Microsoft says, hey, you can have Call of Duty, like, we're going to put it on PlayStation, what they can't do is put it at the same incredibly low, artificially low price. Because Xbox can take the loss. They can offer it in Game Pass day and date and just take the loss. Sony can't afford that. It breaks their virtuous cycle. The investment they make in this is going to be possible. They cannot afford, because so much of their revenue comes from selling the game. That's risky. And as has been shown throughout all of recorded human history, whenever these subscription services get a critical mass of users, they start raising prices. And the deals that were previously fucking amazing, like, remember early Uber? Remember when Uber could drive you anywhere in the city for $5? Do you remember when Netflix used to cost $5.99? Well, now it doesn't. Why Netflix keeps cranking up its prices? Netflix knows it can, because they're a corporation. This is the fundamental way they do that. Small incremental price changes over time. Because they feel they are so well entrenched and their customers are loyal, they feel like it's not going to, so they know they're going to lose service. So that is the goal. And I think we should just be clear that neither of these companies is your best friend. Neither of them have your interest at heart. And both of them want to do this, but only one of them has the financial resources from a massive unrelated industry to make it happen. One is so much bigger than the other that we have to be on our guard. We have to be a little more discerning. And guess what? Even now, it's already happening. This is before they've even started to begin their plan. The Game Pass price hike is already coming. And this is the beginning. This is before they've even, this is not even phase one. Imagine later. So you have to realize, this got higher actually, the rate got raised even higher. So I just want people to fucking, think a little bit longer term than the shiny thing right in front of their face that a company promises them. If a company spends $70 billion on something, you have to understand they expect to make that money back. They are not doing it because Sony are bullies and we want to be heroes. They are doing this because they have a concerted plan to minimize their competition and milk more money out of customers long term. And so that leaves us kind of here. And again, I cut off a part that I did want to mention, which is that a lot of this hinges, this deal going through. Again, the deal was approved by the judge. And much of the deal hinged over a very small thing, I think, in my mind, which was Call of Duty. Basically, it all relied on, the judge thought it was all about Call of Duty. And the FTC was trying to make the case that this is bigger than that. This is about a suite of franchises being used to subsidize a cloud service long term. But the judge kind of focused it all on Call of Duty. And Microsoft did a really good job of saying, hey, listen, Call of Duty, we're going to share with everybody. Don't worry about that. Everyone's getting it. And that's not the whole picture. And I also want to say that if we had memories longer than a goldfish, we could flash back to just, a year ago, 2 years ago, when they bought Bethesda, and then in the same early FTC inquiry from the European Union said, hey, we're going to do this case by case, but we don't foresee having to make any of this stuff exclusive. And then the second the spotlight was off them, they have announced that basically every Bethesda game going forward is going to be exclusive. So, it's like they have a fucking track record of saying whatever they need to say in the moment when the attention is on, and then changing their mind later when nobody cares and nothing can be done about it. It's already gone through. And I think that should weigh on the judge's decision. But the fact that her son worked at Microsoft maybe switched her mind. And so back to this. Where are we now? Where are we as of today? What does this mean? Is there anything happening going forward? Well, first, the only major market in the world, now that the US has stepped down or basically been blocked, the only major market that did block it was the UK. The UK very openly and cleanly and plainly stated that this is not about Call of Duty. This is about cloud gaming. This is really risky for the future of gaming, and we're going to block it. The UK blocked it. It's pretty rare. Again, despite people think, like, a government choosing to block a merger is unpopular with, like, every rich and powerful person. They're doing it only for the benefit of consumers. They're not making a secret Sony payday to block it. It's literally, like, a hard decision that is a net benefit for consumers. Unfortunately, they are actually Sony shills. The UK is actually a huge fucking Sony shill that I found out. And thankfully, Microsoft kind of pwned them after the fact. So now that this has gone through, the US deal, Microsoft basically said a lot of things that you'd think a company wouldn't be able to threaten a country with. But when you're a company this powerful and you can bully countries that are on the back foot like the UK, they basically said, like, hey, this is the darkest day in 4 decades of Britain. And if you want jobs, you better think about changing your competitive market authority. And the message is clear. We're going to go to the EU and start a business, even though this is not starting a business. This is buying a business that already existed for decades for $70 billion. But okay. And with these threats, the UK has gotten scared. So the giant corporation has successfully bullied a government into looking at the deal again. So instead of the UK being the one person blocking it, it's now looking like almost nobody will block it, is the real possible answer. That being said, there's a little bit of glimmer of hope. The FTC, because the case, to me, when you really read like the fucking Clayton Law, which is the whole antitrust law this is based on, from the 1950s, it's the Clayton Law. If you read it, it's actually pretty simply written. And it talks about how the goal of its creation is not just about short-term price advantage for the customer, and it's about a restraint on corporate power. And like any inkling that this is going to increase corporate power over a market should be banned. But we haven't enforced it that way in 50 years. And so the judge kind of just went, eh. That being said, because it's so open and shut on that law, the FTC is considering appealing. Now, normally when they lose a case like this, they just walk away. But now it looks like there's a real chance the FTC might appeal. which is good for a number of reasons, because if they do successfully appeal, at the very least, the time runs out on Microsoft's timeline to get this merger done, and they have to pay Activision Blizzard a $3 billion penalty fee. So at the very least, they lose $3 billion, which would be a nice little tax at least, whether or not the appeal gets actually blocked. But I want to say this. I am still proud of the government for trying to stop this deal. Even if for whatever reason they can't stop it because Microsoft has a ton of power, I am still proud of it. Because if you look at the history of antitrust law, even attempts to block mergers have positive effects for consumers. For example, in the 90s, Microsoft again, which was using Windows to win the browser wars and kill Netscape and all its competition and basically bundle everything with Windows that no one else could win, was sued for antitrust. And the government did not win that case. But the mere threat of it, and it took kind of a long time, the mere threat of it allowed Google and a ton of other tech companies, Google, Firefox, to actually rise up from that open space. And if that had not happened, we would have only Microsoft now instead of at least 5 tech companies. So there is a benefit to even trying to break up these massive, massive, powerful corporations. Also, in this case, Microsoft was just going to buy Activision and be done with it. Completely lock out everyone else. But because of the threat of this government case, they after the lawsuit started, signed deals with Nvidia to put Call of Duty on their cloud service, and with Nintendo to put Call of Duty on their new console, basically. And these deals would not have happened if Microsoft was not trying to show to the judge, hey, we're good, we're friendly. And so, again, these deals are still really small and don't address anything. But even this stuff is small steps to be more pro-consumer because the government tried something. At least they tried. We've had decades of the FTC doing nothing, and now they're finally trying. They're not winning yet, but they're trying, and it helps us. Now, they also offered Sony a 10-year deal on Call of Duty. So again, this deal probably would not be actually in writing unless there was some sort of lawsuit. So there's still some win for gamers, even if it's long-term still, I think, shady. Now, I do want to say a 10-year deal is still actually kind of iffy. I know it seems like a long time, but Call of Duty has been around for 20 years already and has been the best-selling game since at least 2009, which is like 15 years. So it's like Xbox is still playing a longer game than we think. We are just playing into it because it seems like a long time. But I think my overall point, if I had to sum it all up, is that letting a competitor spend the price basically of their competition on something is dangerous. I think letting very big companies get even bigger is something that we should always be naturally suspicious of. That's just, no matter who it is, it's just a natural suspicion of like the big getting ever bigger. It's generally not good for everyone outside of that big conglomerate. And I mentioned this guy previously on a Marketing Monday, but I'm a really big fan. I've been reading more and more of his stuff lately. And it's this guy named Louis Brandeis, who was a Supreme Court justice from a long time ago in America, who was one of the pioneers of antitrust law. And he wrote a lot and did a lot of fighting for the benefit of average workers, average consumers, exposing corruption, fighting railroad trusts, working hour, like just a lot of good stuff. I think he's actually, in my mind, one of the coolest people that's ever been part of the judicial system. And he has an iconic quote that I want to talk about, which is, Americans should be under no illusions as to the value or effect of price cutting. It has been the most potent weapon of monopoly, a means of killing the small rival to which the great trusts have resorted most frequently. It is so simple and so effective. The far-seeing organized capital, in this case Microsoft, secures this means by cooperation of the short-sighted, unorganized consumer, in this case all of us online. We see the shiny Game Pass for a low price now, and we agree to whatever the big multi-trillion-dollar company wants. And that is to our own undoing. Thoughtless or weak, he yields to the temptation of trifling immediate gain and sells his birthright for a mess of pottage, becoming himself an instrument of monopoly. And so the only thing I can say about this is that Louis Brandeis was a Sony shill, bro. This fucking guy was a classic Sony shill. How did they get to him? This guy's in the pocket of big Sony. Holy fuck, another shill, dude. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is this week's Marketing Monday on FTC and Microsoft. Hope you enjoyed. I hope you helped spark some discussion why I'm so against it and why I think the arguments in favor of it are just like super short-sighted.